Dear students, in your syllabus you have been given some 6 to 7 bacterial diseases to be studied in detail. But before doing that, it is important to know what are the various points to be covered in each and every disease that you're going to study. Because if you don't do that, and if you see the literature, for each and every bacterial disease, you have so much to read. So it might become a little confusing for you what to write, what not to write, what to cover, what not to cover. So I'm going to make this a little easier for you by giving you a general view about what are the points need to be covered in each and every bacterial disease that you're going to study. So I have divided the bacterial diseases into two important subdivisions. One is for each and every disease, first you have to know about the organism, and second you need to know about the disease itself. What you should be knowing about the organism. First, what is the causative agent for that particular disease? Which organism causes a particular disease? For example, if it is tuberculosis, which organism, which bacteria causes that disease? Second, it's the structure and the morphological characteristics of that organism, of that particular pathogen. Next is how this organism grow in the laboratory. What are its cultural characteristics? Fourth is its biochemical characteristics, various biochemical reactions that gives out when we grow it in the lab with different conditions. And fifth one is what are the various antigens present in this causative agent or the pathogen, its antigenic characteristics. And the last character is its resistance towards different physical and chemical agents. So this is totally about the characteristics of the organism which causes a particular disease. Now, in the second division, we are going to see the disease character itself. What are those disease characters? First is pathogenesis. How the pathogen enters the body, how it grows, what are the various organs affected, all these details will be seen in pathogenesis. A continuation to this pathogenesis is symptoms. Once the organism grows in the body, causes tissue damage, how you are going to see the clinical symptoms? Second one. And the third one is how this organism is prevalent in the society, how it gets spreaded, how it is prevalent. So this detail will be covered in epidemiology. And then once you see the symptoms in a patient, how you are going to detect the disease in that patient, which organism has caused the disease, what are its characteristics. So how you are going to detect this organism in a clinical diagnostic laboratory. So that is diagnosis. And then once you diagnose, once you know what is a causative agent, the next step will be how to treat the patient. What are the various drugs that need to be given to treat that particular disease in a patient. So that is treatment. And the last part is prophylaxis, how to control the disease in a society. What are we going to do to control that organism, the spread of that organism in the society? That is covered in prophylaxis or control. So these are the points you need to cover about a particular disease that you have been given. First about the organism and next about the disease itself. So let us see a little more in detail about these characteristics. Okay, the first thing about the disease, as I said, is we are going to know about the organism or the causative agent. For any disease, there will be a specific pathogen or a causative agent, and while writing it, you need to specify both the genus and the species of that causative agent. For example, if it is TB, tuberculosis, the causative agent of TB is Mycobacterium tuberculosis. So Mycobacterium is the genus name and tuberculosis is the species name. So even in the exam, while writing this, you need to write properly without any spelling mistakes, and you need to write the genus name and species name fully. First time when you write, you need to write the genus name fully. You cannot write it as M tuberculosis. No. First time when you write, it should be Mycobacterium tuberculosis. The next time when you write, you can write it as M tuberculosis, no problem. But see to it that you write it with proper spellings, and also you underline it separately. You underline the genus and species separately. But if you are going to type it then you can just italicize it. You can write it in italics without any underlining. So that also can be done. But sometimes, let me add here, there are certain diseases which can be caused by more than one species. For example, if you take typhoid, typhoid is caused by almost 3 to 4 species. So at that time, you need to write all the 4 species here. Salmonella typhi, Salmonella paratyphi A, paratyphi B, paratyphi C. Like this, you will have to write all the 3 to 4 species that can cause the disease, a particular disease. So that is about the causative agent. As I said, both genus and species should be written, and it should be underlined, and it should be written without any spelling mistakes. So under morphological characteristics of that organism, what you should cover, this is what has been shown in this slide. I am talking only about bacterial diseases, since that is what given in the third unit. For viral, fungal, protozoan diseases, the morphological characteristics may differ. I am talking only about the bacterial diseases. So here, morphological characters means when you see them under the microscope, what are the characteristics you will usually observe. So among that, the first one is gram reaction. What is its gram character? Whether it is a gram positive organism or a gram negative organism. This you must first identify and note down. But for some organisms, let me say, we don't do gram staining, we do some other type of staining. For example, you can take Mycobacterium tuberculosis itself. This organism, this bacteria is usually observed under microscope by doing another kind of staining technique called acid fast staining. So we don't do gram staining there, we do acid fast staining. So while observing, we should say whether it is an acid fast organism or a non-acid fast organism. So that is how you need to say. These are some exceptions, but most of the times we will see the gram reaction or the gram character of that organism. Next is shape. While seeing under the microscope, what is its particular shape? Whether it is a spherical shaped organism or a rod shaped organism, or it is a spiral shaped organism. This detail you need to give. Third is arrangement. Even if it is in a particular shape, how is it arranged? Whether it is arranged singly or in doubles or in chains or in clusters or spirals. So this is about the arrangement of that organism. So this also should be seen and noted down. The fourth morphological character is whether it is motile or non-motile, whether it contains flagella or not. Flagella might not be seen under a normal staining reaction, but you can do some simple techniques like hanging drop and find out whether the organism is actively motile or not. Then the fifth character is whether it is capsulated or not, whether it contains a special outer covering or not. Because some organisms, for example, if you take Streptococcus pneumoniae, this character holds a lot of importance, because if it is capsulated, it is pathogenic. If it is not capsulated, it is not pathogenic. Virulent, avirulent characteristics will be determined based on this capsule character. So for some organism, this character holds a lot of importance. And the last character you need to say about here is sporulation, whether the organism is spore forming or not. So this character also can be found out by doing a special technique called endospore staining technique. So all these 6 characters should be you should be knowing about a particular pathogen. For example, Mycobacterium tuberculosis ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಎಲ್ಲಾ ಕ್ಯಾರೆಕ್ಟರ್ನು ನೀವು ಸ್ಟಡಿ ಮಾಡಿ ನೋಟ್ ಡೌನ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಇಟ್ಕೋಬೇಕು. ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಗ್ರಾಮ್ ರಿಯಾಕ್ಷನ್ ಬರಲ್ಲ, ಆಸಿಡ್ ಫಾಸ್ಟ್ ರಿಯಾಕ್ಷನ್, ಬಟ್ ಎನಿವೇ ವಾಟ್ ಎವರ್ ಇಟ್ ಇಸ್, ಸ್ಟೇನಿಂಗ್ ರಿಯಾಕ್ಷನ್ ಯು ಶುಡ್ ಬಿ ನೋಯಿಂಗ್. ಸೆಕೆಂಡ್, ಅದು ಕಾಕೈಯ, ರಾಡ, ಸ್ಪೈರಲ, ಸ್ಪೈರೋಕೀಟ ಗೊತ್ತಿರಬೇಕು. ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್, ವಾಟ್ ಟೈಪ್ ಆಫ್ ಅರೇಂಜ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಇಟ್ ಹ್ಯಾಸ್, ಅದು ಗೊತ್ತಿರಬೇಕು. ದೆನ್ ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ಇಸ್ ಮೊಟೈಲ್ ಆರ್ ನಾನ್ ಮೊಟೈಲ್. ದೆನ್ whether it is capsulated or non-capsulated, and the last, whether it is spore forming or non-spore forming. So the next character is cultural characteristics. When we grow this particular pathogen in the laboratory, how does it grow? What are the conditions it is necessary for this organism to grow in the laboratory and form colonies? First one among that is temperature. At what temperature it grows best? So this we need to find out. Let me tell you here one thing. Since we are talking about human pathogens, their usual optimal temperature is 37 degrees. There will not be any change here. ನೀವು ನೋಡುವ ಎಲ್ಲಾ bacterial pathogens, since we are talking about human pathogens, all of them, their optimal temperature is 37 degrees. Why? Because the human body temperature is 37 where it grows best. So outside the laboratory also, outside the body in the laboratory also, the optimal temperature will be 37 degrees. Next is pH. At what pH it grows best? Usually, let me tell you, human pathogens again, usually they grow best between a pH of 6 to 8, almost near neutral pH alle ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿ grow ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. So ಅದರಲ್ಲೂ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ changes ಬರಲ್ಲ. Next character is whether it needs oxygen for its growth or not, whether it is an aerobic organism or an anaerobic organism or sometimes a facultative anaerobic organism. So ಇದು ನಿಮಗೆ ಗೊತ್ತಿರಬೇಕು while growing them in the laboratory. Next, some organisms might need a little amount of carbon dioxide while growing in the laboratory. Especially facultative anaerobes ಅಥವಾ anaerobes grow ಆಗುವಾಗ they might need carbon dioxide as a supplementary gas for their better growth. So this detail also is desirable while growing them. Next is, this is very important here, in what type of growth media they grow best. See, usually ನಾವು ಏನು ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ laboratory ಅಲ್ಲಿ, we use a general purpose media like a nutrient agar to grow the organisms, right? But the type of organisms that we are growing, we usually take it either from soil or from water or from some food substance, right? So ಈ organisms ಗೆ ನೀವು ಎಲ್ಲಿ ಯಾವ ಮೀಡಿಯಾನಲ್ಲಿ ಗ್ರೋ ಮಾಡಕ್ ಬಿಟ್ರು ಗ್ರೋ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ ಜನರಲ್ ಪರ್ಪಸ್ ಮೀಡಿಯಾದಲ್ಲಿ. ಬಟ್ here, since we are talking about human pathogens, they might not grow well in a general purpose media like nutrient agar. Many a times they need some special media for their growth. Yav special media? Remember these three special media. One is enriched media, second is selective media, third is differential media. Enriched media means what? When we add some enriching substance to a general media. For example, nutrient agarge now blood, serum, egg, ee tara enadru ondu special component, enriching component hakidre, that becomes an enriched media. So most of the human pathogens, if you see, they will have one specific enriched media for their growth. So you should be knowing about, for that particular pathogen, what is the enriched media. ಇದು ಗೊತ್ತಿರಬೇಕು. Second is selective media. Selective media ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಏನು? See, in this media we are going to add a specific substance, a selective substance which is going to allow the growth of our pathogen and inhibit the growth of all undesirable organisms. ಇದು ಯಾವಾಗ ಬರುತ್ತೆ ಈ ತರ ಸಿಚುವೇಶನ್ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ, you think about a fecal material. ಫೀಕಲ್ ಮೆಟೀರಿಯಲ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ನಮಗೆ ಒಂದು ಪರ್ಟಿಕ್ಯುಲರ್, ಫಾರ್ ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್ ಸಾಲ್ಮೊನೆಲ್ಲಾ ಮಾತ್ರ ಗ್ರೋ ಆಗಬೇಕು ಇದ್ರೆ, salmonella idre, only that should grow, whereas all the other undesirable, because fecal matter, you know, there are millions of microorganisms that will be present in fecal matter, right? So nanage, I don't want all those undesirable organisms to grow. I want only salmonella to grow. So what I should do is, in the media where I'm going to cultivate, I need to add some selective substance in that media which will allow only salmonella to grow and inhibit all other undesirable organisms. So such a media is called a selective media. So namma particular pathogen ge selective media yaudu anta gottirbeku. The last one is differential media. See, sometimes we might not be able to inhibit the growth of specific organisms. In that case, namma pathogen jotege grow aguva innondu organism ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಡಿಫರೆಂಟ್ ಆಗಿ ಕಾಣಬೇಕು, so that we can easily differentiate and exclude that organism. For example, again fecal matter ತಗೊಳ್ಳಿ. fecal matter ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಸಾಲ್ಮೊನೆಲ್ಲಾನು ಇದೆ, ಈ ಕೊಲೈನು ಇದೆ. ಎರಡರನ್ನು ಸೆಲೆಕ್ಟಿವ್ ಸಬ್ಸ್ಟೆನ್ಸ್ ತಗೊಂಡು ನನಗೆ ಇನ್ಹಿಬಿಟ್ ಮಾಡಕ್ ಆಗಲ್ಲ. ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಈ ಕೊಲೈನ್ ಇನ್ಹಿಬಿಟ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಬರೀ ಸಾಲ್ಮೊನೆಲ್ಲನ್ ಮಾತ್ರ ಗ್ರೋ ಮಾಡ್ಸಕ್ ಆಗಲ್ಲ, ಬಿಕಾಸ್ ಬೋತ್ ಆರ್ ಗ್ರಾಮ್ ನೆಗೆಟಿವ್ ಆರ್ಗಾನಿಸಮ್ಸ್, ಬೋತ್ ಆರ್ ರಾಟ್ಸ್, ಆಲ್ಮೋಸ್ಟ್ ಸೇಮ್ ಟೈಪ್ ಆಫ್ ಕ್ಯಾರೆಕ್ಟರ್. ಸೊ ಎರಡು ಗ್ರೋ ಆಗೇ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ ನನ್ನ ಮೀಡಿಯಾನಲ್ಲಿ ಎನ್ನುವಾಗ, I can use some specific substance in my media which will differentiate the colonies of Salmonella and E. coli. Salmonella ಒಂದು ಕಲರ್ ಬರುತ್ತೆ, E. coli ಇನ್ನೊಂದು ಕಲರ್ ಬರುತ್ತೆ. ಆ ತರ ಡಿಫರೆನ್ಶಿಯೇಟ್ ಮಾಡಕ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ such media is called differential media. So these three media we should be knowing for a specific pathogen: enriched media, selective media, and differential media. So the last character here is when the organism grows in any of these media, what type of colony it is going to give. Because some organisms, some pathogens will give very specific colonies, but just by seeing these colonies we can find out which organism it is. So knowing the colony characteristics also is important while we grow these pathogens in the laboratory. So these 6 characters we need to cover under cultural characteristics: optimum temperature, optimum pH, oxygen requirement, carbon dioxide requirement, type of growth media in which the organism grows, and its colony characteristics. The next is biochemical characteristics of that particular pathogen, different biochemical reactions. I have just mentioned a few here for you to easily remember. First one among that is sugar fermentation. See, when we grow this pathogen and different type of sugars, whether it can carry out fermentation of the sugars. So fermentation process andre eno? Usually fermentation alli final products ಏನು ಬರುತ್ತೆ ಅಂತ ನೋಡಿದ್ರೆ acid and gas formation ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. So when the organism grows in different sugars, whether it gives rise to acid and gas or not, to find this out, we have a specific type of biochemical test which you have done already. Sugar fermentation, for example, lactose fermentation ಮಾಡಿದೀರಾ. Lactose fermentation ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಯಾವ ತರ ರಿಸಲ್ಟ್ ಬರುತ್ತೆ? Acid ಆದ್ರೆ ಕಲರ್ ಚೇಂಜ್ ಇರುತ್ತೆ, gas formation ಆದ್ರೆ your Durham's tube will collect gas in that and will show bubble formation inside, right? So ಈ ತರ acid gas formation ಇಂದ what type of sugars are fermented by that particular organism we should be knowing. Usual sugars used are 4 GLSM ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಿ: ಗ್ಲೂಕೋಸ್, ಲ್ಯಾಕ್ಟೋಸ್, ಸೂಕ್ರೋಸ್ and mannitol. ಈ 4 ಶುಗರ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಯೂಶಲಿ ಆರ್ಗಾನಿಸಮ್ ನ ಚೆಕ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ. ಬಟ್ ಸರ್ಟನ್ ಪ್ಯಾಥೋಜನ್ಸ್ ಮೈಟ್ ನೀಡ್ ಸಮ್ ಸ್ಪೆಷಲ್ ಶುಗರ್ಸ್. ಫಾರ್ ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್, ಸ್ಟ್ರೆಪ್ಟೋಕಾಕಸ್ ನಿಮೋನಿಯಾ ಇದ್ರೆ ಯು ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಯೂಸ್ ಇನುಲಿನ್ ಶುಗರ್ ಟು ಫೈಂಡ್ ಔಟ್ ವೆದರ್ ಫರ್ಮೆಂಟೇಷನ್ ಇಸ್ ಹ್ಯಾಪನಿಂಗ್ ಆರ್ ನಾಟ್. ಸೊ ಆ ತರ ಯೂಶುವಲ್ ಶುಗರ್ಸ್ ಮಾಡಬಹುದು, ಸ್ಪೆಸಿಫಿಕ್ ಸ್ಪೆಷಲ್ ಶುಗರ್ಸ್ ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಶುಗರ್ ಫರ್ಮೆಂಟೇಷನ್ ರಿಯಾಕ್ಷನ್ ನ ಟೆಸ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡಬಹುದು. Second is whether the organism contains the enzyme catalase or not. Because catalase is a reaction which will tell you whether the organism is aerobic or facultative anaerobic or anaerobic. Idu gottagutte catalase reaction inda. So you can very easily do this test, which already you have done. I know all these tests you have done in the laboratory already. So catalase test alli bubble formation nodkondu whether that organism is positive or negative anta you can easily find out. Next is oxidase reaction, whether the particular organism is oxidase positive or oxidase negative. This is an enzyme called cytochrome C oxidase, which is present in a few pathogens and absent in a few pathogens. So to differentiate between pathogens, again, this particular test can be done. For example, Pseudomonas species na Enterobacteria species in the differentiate ಮಾಡಬೇಕು. Pseudomonas is oxidase positive, E. coli is oxidase negative. So ಈ ತರ differentiate ಮಾಡಕ್ಕೆ among the different species we can do this test. Next is hydrolytic reactions, whether the organism is able to break down complex substances present in the medium. So hydrolysis reaction ನೋಡಬಹುದು. This also you have done, whether the organism can hydrolyze starch or not, can hydrolyze gelatin or not, or it can hydrolyze urea or not. So ಇದೆಲ್ಲ all these reactions check the presence or absence of specific enzymes again. For example, starch andre amylase enzyme is present or not anta nodithivi. Illi gelatinase enzymes presence or absence we check, and here we check the presence or absence of urease enzyme. So like this hydrolysis test can be done, and you can find out its character. The last one I have mentioned here is Imvik reactions. Again, I know you have done all these tests in the laboratory while doing environmental microbiology practicals. So Imvik reaction is a mnemonic for 4 tests: indole test, methyl red test, August-Proskauer test, and citrate utilization test. 4 tests which are done together to identify the biochemical characteristics of the organism. So based on the organism, one or two reactions will give positive, while some reactions will give rise to negative. Right? So like this, all these biochemical tests are carried out in the laboratory to find out the biochemical characteristics of this organism, which is going to help us in further identifying the organism. Next is antigenic characters. What are the different types of antigens present in that organism? You already will be knowing about antigens. See, these are substances present on the pathogen, so that when the pathogen enters inside our body, our body is going to produce antibodies against these special structures present on the pathogens. So these special structures which stimulate the production of antibodies are called antigens. So ಏನೇನಿದೆ ಈ ಆರ್ಗಾನಿಸಮ್ ಮೇಲೆ ಇರುವ ಏನೇನ್ ಸ್ಟ್ರಕ್ಚರ್ಸ್ ಗೆ ನಮ್ಮ ಬಾಡಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಆಂಟಿಬಾಡೀಸ್ ಪ್ರೊಡ್ಯೂಸ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ ಅಂತ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಒಂದು ಜನರಲ್ ಐಡಿಯಾ ಕೊಟ್ಟಿದ್ದೇನೆ. See, for example, the different types of antigens that will be present in the pathogen can be classified like this. Most of them contain this particular antigen, that is somatic antigen, which is also called O antigen. Somatic antigen antandre idu, this structure is usually present in the cell wall of that organism. Cell wall alliruva ಒಂದು ಕಾಂಪೊನೆಂಟ್ ಇದು. Cell wall ಎಲ್ಲ ಬ್ಯಾಕ್ಟೀರಿಯಾದಲ್ಲೂ ಇರುವುದರಿಂದ this somatic antigen is a very commonly present antigen in all the pathogens. Depending on the complexity, the somatic antigen will be either highly antigenic or less antigenic in nature. ಏನದು, ಫಾರ್ ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್ ಗ್ರಾಮ್ ನೆಗೆಟಿವ್ ಆರ್ಗಾನಿಸಮ್ಸ್ ಅಂತ ತಗೊಂಡ್ರೆ ದ ಸೆಲ್ ವಾಲ್ ವಿಲ್ ಬಿ ವೆರಿ ಕಾಂಪ್ಲೆಕ್ಸ್. ಸೊ ದ ಸೊಮ್ಯಾಟಿಕ್ ಆಂಟಿಜನ್ ಆರ್ ಓ ಆಂಟಿಜನ್ಗೆ ಆಂಟಿಬಾಡಿ ಪ್ರೊಡಕ್ಷನ್ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. ಬಟ್ ಇಫ್ ಯು ಟೇಕ್ ಅ ಗ್ರಾಮ್ ಪಾಸಿಟಿವ್ ಆರ್ಗಾನಿಸಮ್, ಇದು ಕಾಂಪ್ಲೆಕ್ಸಿಟಿನೂ ಕಡಿಮೆ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ಆಂಟಿಜೆನಿಕ್ ಕ್ಯಾರೆಕ್ಟರ್ ಕೂಡ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಲೋ ಲೆವೆಲ್ ಅಲ್ಲೇ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ಇಸ್ ಸಮ್ ಆರ್ಗಾನಿಸಮ್, ಸಮ್ ಪ್ಯಾಥೋಜನ್ಸ್ ವಿಲ್ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಕ್ಯಾಪ್ಸ್ಯೂಲ್ಸ್ ಸರೌಂಡಿಂಗ್ ದೇರ್ external surface, right? So these capsule can also act as a very good antigen, and such antigens are called K antigens. Next is some organisms, some pathogens are motile in nature. Usually motility is seen with the presence of flagella. So flagella also can act like an antigen, and such antigens are called H antigens. So remember these alphabets here. Cell wall antigens or somatic antigens are called O antigens, whereas capsular antigens are called K antigens, and flagellar antigens are called H antigens. So for most of the pathogens, depending on their morphological characters, the either one or more than one antigens will be present. Same way, along with these structural antigens, you will also find virulence factors which again can act as antigens. As I said, virulence factors ಏನು ಅಂತ last presentation ಅಲ್ಲೇ ಹೇಳಿದ್ದೇನೆ. So just go through it once to understand what this is. So among the virulence factors, the most common antigens are Fimbriae antigens, which is necessary for binding of the pathogen on the mucosal surfaces, and also different types of toxins, both endotoxins and exotoxins that is present in that pathogen can act as very good antigens. So for each and every pathogen that you are going to study, you need to know what are the various antigens present in them. Next, the last character about the organism that we are going to study is their resistance character. What are the various agents for which we are going to study the resistance? First is high temperature and low temperature resistance. Now study ಮಾಡುವ pathogen whether it is resistant to high temperature or low temperature. High temperature ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ whether it is resistant to boiling or is it resistant to pasteurization. ಈ detail ನಮಗೆ ಗೊತ್ತಿರಬೇಕು. Same way low temperature ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ whether the organism is resistant to ice. high very cold temperature or can it survive in ice? ಈ detail ನಾವು ಓದಬೇಕು. Next is its resistance to different types of disinfectants that we commonly use. For example, ಅದು phenol ಅಥವಾ chlorine, hypochlorite. For any type of disinfectants, whether the organism is sensitive or resistant, ಇದು ಗೊತ್ತಿರಬೇಕು. Next is whether the organism is resistant to drying or dehydration. Suppose the food product or any other substance is completely dry, can the organism survive in such a dried condition? Dry temperature, dry season irbodu, or soil will be very dry, or different types of fomites that may come across will be dry. So drying effect in the whether the organism die or can it survive, this detail should be known. And last is whether it is resistant to acidic pH, or I can also call it as gastric pH. So low pH alli can it survive? So ಈ detail ಕೆಲವೊಂದು organismಗೆ ಗೊತ್ತಿರಬೇಕು. For those organism which enter through the oral tract, gastrointestinal tract ಅಲ್ಲಿ disease cause ಮಾಡುವ organismಗೆ ಈ particular character ನ ನಾವು ಸ್ಟಡಿ ಮಾಡೇ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ. So resistance to low pH or acidic pH. So ಇಷ್ಟು resistance character ಗೊತ್ತಿದ್ರೆ ಸಾಕು. Okay, fine. Now a question might arise in your mind, why I should study all these characters of the pathogens while I have been given to study the disease character. We have to study about TB, typhoid, cholera, syphilis. ಇದರ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಓದಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ಆರ್ಗ್ಯಾನಿಸಮ್ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಡೀಟೇಲ್ಸ್ ಯಾಕೆ ಓದಬೇಕು ಮೇಡಮ್ ಅಂತ ಕೇಳಿದ್ರೆ, ಲೆಟ್ ಮೀ ಟೆಲ್ ಯು, ಆಸ್ ಅ ಮೈಕ್ರೋಬಯಾಲಜಿಸ್ಟ್, it is these details that we should be knowing properly more than the disease details. Disease details doctors ge gottidre saku, but as a microbiologist who is going to do research or who is going to work in a diagnostic laboratory, ee tara ನಾವು ಈ ಕಂಡೀಷನ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಇರೋದ್ರಿಂದ ನಮಗೆ ಆರ್ಗ್ಯಾನಿಸಮ್ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಅಥವಾ ಪ್ಯಾಥೋಜನ್ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಡೀಟೇಲ್ಸ್ ತುಂಬಾ ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿ ಗೊತ್ತಿರಲೇಬೇಕು. ಫಾರ್ ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್, ಯು ಟೇಕ್ ಮಾರ್ಫಾಲಜಿಕಲ್ ಕ್ಯಾರೆಕ್ಟರ್, ಕಲ್ಚರಲ್ ಕ್ಯಾರೆಕ್ಟರ್. ಇದು ಯಾಕೆ ಬೇಕು ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ, ಯು ವಿಲ್ ಬಿ ವರ್ಕಿಂಗ್ ಇನ್ ಅ ಡಯಾಗ್ನೋಸ್ಟಿಕ್ ಲ್ಯಾಬೊರೇಟರಿ. ಅಲ್ಲಿ ನಿಮಗೆ ಸ್ಯಾಂಪಲ್ ಕೊಡ್ತಾರೆ. ಸ್ಯಾಂಪಲ್ ಕೊಟ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು ಫೈಂಡ್ ಔಟ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಆರ್ಗ್ಯಾನಿಸಮ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ. ಸೊ ಆಗ ಯು ಶುಡ್ ಬಿ ನೋಯಿಂಗ್ ಹೌ ಟು use that sample for detecting the organism. or microscopic character study ಮಾಡಬೇಕಾ, ಅಥವಾ ಆ ಸ್ಯಾಂಪಲ್ ನ ಒಂದು ಕಲ್ಚರ್ ಮೀಡಿಯಂ ನಲ್ಲಿ ಹಾಕಿ ಗ್ರೋ ಮಾಡಿ ಕಾಲನಿ ಸ್ಟಡಿ ಮಾಡಿ ಅದರಿಂದ ಅದರ್ ಕ್ಯಾರೆಕ್ಟರ್ಸ್ ಫೈಂಡ್ ಔಟ್ ಮಾಡೋದು, ಇದೆಲ್ಲ ಡಯಾಗ್ನೋಸಿಸ್ ಆಫ್ ದಿ ಡಿಸೀಸ್ಗೆ ಅಥವಾ ಡಿಟೆಕ್ಷನ್ ಆಫ್ ದಿ ಪ್ಯಾಥೋಜನ್ಗೆ ತುಂಬಾ ಇಂಪಾರ್ಟೆಂಟ್. ಸೊ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ನಿಮ್ಮ ವರ್ಕ್ ಬೇಕಾಗಿರೋದ್ರಿಂದ ಯು ಶುಡ್ ಬಿ ನೋಯಿಂಗ್ ಅಬೌಟ್ ದೋಸ್ ಕ್ಯಾರೆಕ್ಟರ್ಸ್ ದೇರ್. ಮಾರ್ಫಾಲಜಿಕಲ್, ದೆನ್ ಕಲ್ಚರಲ್ ಕ್ಯಾರೆಕ್ಟರ್, ಬಯೋಕೆಮಿಕಲ್ ಕ್ಯಾರೆಕ್ಟರ್, ಇದು ಮೂರು ಕೂಡ ಡಿಟೆಕ್ಷನ್ ಆಫ್ ಡಿಸೀಸ್ಗೆ ತುಂಬಾ ಬೇಕು. ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್, ಸರಿ, ಆಂಟಿಜೆನಿಕ್ ಕ್ಯಾರೆಕ್ಟರ್ ಯಾಕೆ ಓದ್ತೀವಿ? ಆಂಟಿಜೆನಿಕ್ ಕ್ಯಾರೆಕ್ಟರ್ ಶುಡ್ ಬಿ ನೋನ್, ಒನ್ ಆಫ್ ಕೋರ್ಸ್ ಫಾರ್ ಡಯಾಗ್ನೋಸಿಸ್, ಬಿಕಾಸ್ ನವಡೇಸ್ ಮೆನಿ ಟೈಪ್ ಆಫ್ ಕಿಟ್ಸ್ ಆರ್ ಕಮಿಂಗ್ ವಿಚ್ ಇಸ್ ಗೋಯಿಂಗ್ ಟು ವರ್ಕ್ ಆನ್ ದ ಬೇಸಿಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಆಂಟಿಜೆನ್ ಆಂಟಿಬಾಡಿ ರಿಯಾಕ್ಷನ್ಸ್. ನಾವು ಮಾಲಿಕ್ಯುಲರ್ ಮೆಥಡ್ಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಡಯಾಗ್ನೋಸಿಸ್ ಅಂತ ಏನ್ ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಲ್ಲ, ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಎಲ್ಲ ಈ ಆಂಟಿಜೆನ್ ಆಂಟಿಬಾಡಿ ರಿಯಾಕ್ಷನ್ಸ್ ಅನ್ನೇ ಓದ್ತೀವಿ. ಸೊ ಹಾಗಾದ್ರೆ ಆಂಟಿಜೆನ್ಸ್ ಏನಿದೆ ಅಂತ ಗೊತ್ತಾದ್ರೆ ತಾನೆ ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ತಕ್ಕ ವಿ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಡೆವಲಪ್ ಕಿಟ್ಸ್ ಅಂಡ್ ವಿ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಡಿಟೆಕ್ಟ್ ದ ಡಿಸೀಸ್ ಈಸಿಲಿ. ಸೊ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಆಂಟಿಜೆನಿಕ್ ಕ್ಯಾರೆಕ್ಟರ್ಸ್ ಗೊತ್ತಿರಬೇಕು. ಸೆಕೆಂಡ್ ಇಂಪಾರ್ಟೆಂಟ್ ಏರಿಯಾ ವೇರ್ ಆಂಟಿಜೆನಿಕ್ ಕ್ಯಾರೆಕ್ಟರ್ ಇಸ್ ಗೋಯಿಂಗ್ ಟು ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಅ ಸೇ ಇಸ್ ಡೆವಲಪ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಆಫ್ ವ್ಯಾಕ್ಸಿನ್ಸ್. ನೀವು ವ್ಯಾಕ್ಸಿನ್ ಡೆವಲಪ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು ಅಂತಾದ್ರೆ ಅಗೇನ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಕೂಡ ನಿಮಗೆ ಏನೇನು ಆಂಟಿಜೆನ್ಸ್ ಇದೆ ಆ ಆರ್ಗ್ಯಾನಿಸಮ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಅಂತ ಗೊತ್ತಿರಬೇಕು. ಫೈನ್. ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ಇಸ್ ರೆಸಿಸ್ಟೆನ್ಸ್ ಕ್ಯಾರೆಕ್ಟರ್ ಯಾಕೆ ಗೊತ್ತಿರಬೇಕು? ಕ್ವೈಟ್ ಸಿಂಪಲ್. ಇಫ್ ಯು ವಾಂಟ್ ಟು ಕಂಟ್ರೋಲ್ ದ ಡಿಸೀಸ್, ಒಂದು ಪರ್ಸನಲ್ಲಿ ಅಥವಾ ಒಂದು ಸೊಸೈಟಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಡಿಸೀಸ್ ಕಂಟ್ರೋಲ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು, ಅಥವಾ ಇಫ್ ಯು ವಾಂಟ್ ಟು ಸ್ಟಡಿ ಹೌ ದ ಡಿಸೀಸ್ ಗೆಟ್ ಸ್ಪ್ರೆಡೆಡ್, ಅಗೇನ್ ದಿಸ್ ರೆಸಿಸ್ಟೆಂಟ್ ಕ್ಯಾರೆಕ್ಟರ್ ಇಸ್ ಗೋಯಿಂಗ್ ಟು ಹೆಲ್ಪ್ ಅಸ್. ಫಾರ್ ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್, ವೆರಿ ಸಿಂಪಲ್ ಒಂದು ಹೇಳ್ತೇನೆ. ಮಿಲ್ಕ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಇರುವ ಪ್ಯಾಥೋಜನ್ಸ್ ಅನ್ನ ನಾವು ಕಂಟ್ರೋಲ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು ಅಂತಾದ್ರೆ ಮಿಲ್ಕ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಇರುವ ಪ್ಯಾಥೋಜನ್ಸ್ ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಹೀಟ್ ರೆಸಿಸ್ಟೆನ್ಸ್ ಕ್ಯಾರೆಕ್ಟರ್ ನ ನೋಡಬೇಕು. whether they are highly heat resistance or whether they are less heat resistance. ಅದನ್ನ ನೋಡ್ಬಿಟ್ರೆ ಆ ಮಿಲ್ಕ್ ಅನ್ನ ನಾನು ಬಾಯ್ಲ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೇಕಾ ಪ್ಯಾಶ್ಚರೈಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೇಕಾ ಅಂತ ಗೊತ್ತಾಗುತ್ತೆ, ರೈಟ್? ಸೊ knowing about the characteristics of an organism which is going to act as a pathogen is very important for a microbiologist to do his contribution at various levels. Detection level alli, epidemiological level alli, control level alli, treatment level alli tumba help agutte. So that is why it is important for us. Next is about the disease itself. What are the various characters that we should be knowing about the disease? First one among that is pathogenesis. Don't get confused this term with pathogenicity. That is different. Pathogenicity is the ability of the organism to cause the disease, right? Here we are talking about pathogenesis. That means we are going to we already know that pathogen, and we are going to study how it enters inside and how it causes the disease. So that is pathogenesis. So under pathogenesis, what we will be covering is, first is how that pathogen enters inside the body. What is its portal of entry, whether it enters through nose or mouth or genital tract or urinary tract. So that is the first thing. Second is its infectious dose. Infectious dose, now we usually call it with the term ID50. What is this ID50? See, it is the number of cells necessary to cause the infection in 50% of the experimental animals that have been used. ಎಷ್ಟು cells ಬೇಕು ಒಂದು infection ಆಗಕ್ಕೆ ಎಷ್ಟು cells ಬೇಕು. This ID50 will differ from pathogen to pathogen. Some pathogens which are highly virulent will be having very low ID50. For example, Shigella ತಗೊಂಡ್ರೆ just 200 cells ಇದ್ರೆ, ಕೆಲವೊಂದು ಸ್ಟಡೀಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ 200 cells ಇದ್ರೆ ಸಾಕು ಅಂತ ಕೊಟ್ಟಿದ್ದಾರೆ. Whereas in some studies they have told around 5000 cells are necessary. Even 5000 is very less. For bacterial cells, 5000 is a very less number, right? So ishte saku, only these many number of cells is enough to cause an infection in an experimental animal. So idu just one or two animals alli usually check madalla. For example, let us say 100 mice alli check ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ 50 mice alli ಎಷ್ಟು ಬೇಕು infection cause ಮಾಡಕ್ಕೆ ಅಂತ ನೋಡ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು they call it as ID50. So simply speaking, it is the number of cells necessary to cause infection in an animal. Okay, so this we should be knowing how many cells are necessary to cause the infection. Then once it enters inside the body, what is its site of multiplication? Because as soon as it enters, it will not grow. It will travel. It will go to a particular site where it can get itself attached, and then it will start growing in that particular region. So this is the next stage of pathogenesis. After entry, with a particular infectious dose, it is going to go to a particular area, it is going to bind there, and it will start growing there. So that is the site of multiplication. And from there it goes to it is going to spread to other tissues. While multiplication itself, it will start spreading to other tissues. Either neighboring cells will be affected, or it will start penetrating inside deeper tissues. So how this tissue invasion will happen, and whether it is going to get localized in one particular area alone, or is it going to spread to other organs also systemically. That means circulation ge hogi, blood ge hogi, ಬೇರೆ organs ಗೆ ಹೋಗಿ ಅಲ್ಲಿ multiplication ನ continue ಮಾಡುತ್ತಾ. So this is what we'll be studying in tissue invasion. Finally, when all this is happening at the end stage, when it invades the tissues, you will start seeing damage to the tissues, or tissue injury will happen. And it is at this stage only you are going to actually see the clinical disease. ಇಲ್ಲಿವರೆಗೆ ನಿಮಗೆ symptoms ಏನೂ ಕಾಣಲ್ಲ. You will see the symptoms only after tissue injury takes place. So that is the final step here, that is clinical disease. So the period at the time of entry to the first set of symptoms appear, ಏನು period ಇದೆಯಲ್ಲ, this is what we call incubation period. The period between the time of between the entry of the pathogen and the first set of symptoms appear, that period is called incubation period. For some organisms, the incubation period will be very less. Within a day or within a few hours, it will start showing symptoms. But for some organisms, the incubation period will be very long. Some of them will take even years to show first set of symptoms. We will never be knowing that organism is present until we start seeing the symptoms. Okay, so this is what will be covered in pathogenesis. So next thing is, as I said, at the end of the tissue injury, we will start seeing the clinical disease itself in the form of symptoms. So symptoms can be categorized into three ways. First is general symptoms. As soon as the multiplication of the organism starts, many a times you will start seeing some general symptoms in the body like headache, malaise ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ tiredness, pyrexia, that is rise in temperature, ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಜನರಲ್ ಟರ್ಮ್ಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಫೀವರ್ ಅಂತ ಏನ್ ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಲ್ಲ ಅದು ಪೈರೆಕ್ಸಿಯಾ, and anorexia ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಲಾಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಅಪಿಟೈಟ್, ಯು ಡೋಂಟ್ ಫೀಲ್ ಲೈಕ್ ಈಟಿಂಗ್, ಯು ವಿಲ್ ಲೂಸ್ ಟೇಸ್ಟ್ ಇನ್ ದ ಟಂಗ್. ಸೊ ಇದು ಜನರಲ್ ಸಿಂಪ್ಟಮ್ಸ್. ಇದು ಎಲ್ಲ ಇನ್ಫೆಕ್ಷನ್ ಅಲ್ಲೂ ಈ ಸಿಂಪ್ಟಮ್ಸ್ ಅನ್ನ ಯೂಶುವಲ್ ಆಗಿ ನಾವು ನೋಡ್ತೀವಿ. So next is, depending on the organism which has caused the disease, depending on the tissue where it has started multiplying continuously, depending on that there will be certain specific symptoms. For example, there are pathogens which will stay in the intestinal tract. They will perforate the intestinal tract, they will release toxins there, causing a lot of problems in the digestion. So on the organisms, they will either cause diarrhea or dysentery. So these are the specific symptoms. Whereas there are some organisms which will specifically grow in the lungs, cause lung malfunction. So such organisms will cause pneumonia. Idu specific symptoms depending on the organism, depending on the disease, will differ. And there are certain other complications you will see many times when the disease becomes very severe. ಇನಿಷಿಯಲ್ ಸ್ಟೇಜಲ್ಲೇ ಏನಾದರೂ ರಿಕವರಿ ಆಗಿಲ್ಲ, ಇಲ್ಲ ಟ್ರೀಟ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಸರಿಯಾಗಿ ತಗೊಂಡಿಲ್ಲ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಸಮ್ಟೈಮ್ಸ್ ಯು ವಿಲ್ ಸಿ ಅದರ್ ಕಾಂಪ್ಲಿಕೇಶನ್ಸ್, ಎಸ್ಪೆಷಲಿ ಸಿಸ್ಟಮಿಕ್ ಡಿಸೀಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಇದಿರುತ್ತೆ. ಅಂದ್ರೆ ದ ಡಿಸೀಸಸ್ ವಿಚ್ ಗೆಟ್ ಸ್ಪ್ರೆಡೆಡ್ ಥ್ರೂ ಬ್ಲಡ್, ಇದರಲ್ಲಿ ತುಂಬಾ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. ಹೆಮರೇಜ್, that is loss of blood. So if there is too much loss of blood, it will result in anemia. Low blood count irutte, so that is called anemia. And all these what you are seeing, they are all inflammations in the body. Itis anta ನೀವು ಎಲ್ಲಿ terms ನೋಡ್ತಿರೋ, it is about inflammation. Inflammation ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಏನು, ಇದು ನಾರ್ಮಲ್ ನೀವು ಕನ್ನಡ ಲ್ಯಾಂಗ್ವೇಜ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಹೇಳುವುದಂತಾದ್ರೆ ಉರಿಯೂತ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ. ಆರ್ let me again give you another word. ಈ ಎಡಿಮಾ, ಎರಿಥಿಮಾ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಸ್ವೆಲ್ಲಿಂಗ್ ಅಂಡ್ ರೆಡ್ನೆಸ್ ಎಲ್ಲ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ ಅಲ್ಲ. ಫಾರ್ ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್ ನಿಮಗೆ ಏನಾದರೂ ಚುಚ್ತು ಅಂತ ಆದ್ರೆ, any insect bite, anything happens, what happens to your skin? First is it becomes swollen, which we call edema. And the area also will become very red in color, which we call erythema. So ee tara edema, erythema agudannu ನಾವು inflammation ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಿ. ಇದು ಸ್ಕಿನ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಮಾತ್ರ ಬರಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ಏನಿಲ್ಲ, even in your internal organs this will happen. So wherever the inflammation is seen, depending on that we have different terms. For example, meningitis ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ inflammation in meninges, brain envelope ಅಲ್ಲಿ inflammation ಆದ್ರೆ we call it as meningitis. ಆರ್ಥರೈಟಿಸ್, ಜಾಯಿಂಟ್ಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಎಲ್ಲೆಲ್ಲಿ ನಮ್ಮ ಬಾಡಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಜಾಯಿಂಟ್ಸ್ ಇದೆಯೋ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಇನ್ಫ್ಲಮೇಷನ್ ಆದ್ರೆ ವಿ ಕಾಲ್ ಇಟ್ ಆಸ್ ಆರ್ಥರೈಟಿಸ್. ಹೆಪಟೈಟಿಸ್, ಲಿವರ್ ಸೆಲ್ಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ, ಲಿವರ್ ಟಿಶ್ಯೂನಲ್ಲಿ ಇನ್ಫ್ಲಮೇಷನ್ ಆದ್ರೆ ವಿ ಕಾಲ್ ಇಟ್ ಆಸ್ ಹೆಪಟೈಟಿಸ್. ನೆಫ್ರೈಟಿಸ್, ಇನ್ಫ್ಲಮೇಷನ್ ಇನ್ ದಿ ನೆಫ್ರಾನ್ಸ್, ಕಿಡ್ನಿ ಟಿಶ್ಯೂನಲ್ಲಿ ಇನ್ಫ್ಲಮೇಷನ್ ಆದ್ರೆ ನೆಫ್ರೈಟಿಸ್. ಕಾಲಿಸಿಸ್ಟೈಟಿಸ್, ಗಾಲ್ ಬ್ಲಾಡರ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಇನ್ಫ್ಲಮೇಷನ್ ಆದ್ರೆ ವಿ ಕಾಲ್ ಇಟ್ ಆಸ್ cholecystitis. So depending on the area of inflammation, we have different terms, we have different complications seen. So ಇದೆಲ್ಲ ರಿಯಾಕ್ಷನ್ಸ್ ಏನು ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ, these are basically immunological reactions that happens in our body, because when the pathogen grows inside the body, as you know already, our immune system will also start functioning. So immune system ಗೆ pathogen ಮಧ್ಯದಲ್ಲಿ ಒಂದು ಫೈಟಿಂಗ್ ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಟ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. So when there is a reaction taking place between the pathogen and our immune system, all types of reactions will start taking place. Both desirable and undesirable reactions will start taking place. Adralli, one way of defense is inflammation. Ashte. So inflammation in the sometimes completely the pathogen will be eliminated from the body, or sometimes our own body tissues will get injured or damaged. So ಎರಡು type of positive effect, negative effect ಎರಡು ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. So depending on that, we are going to call it as either immunological reaction or complication ಅಂತನೂ ಹೇಳ್ಬೋದು. So these are the symptoms we are going to study about specific diseases, general symptoms, specific symptoms, or and other complications that could be observed with a particular disease. So next is epidemiology. Patient ಗೆ disease ಆಗಿದೆ, how the disease would have been caused in that patient, or one patient alla, many patients are coming in a particular area, many people are suffering from the same disease. So idu hege agirbodu, how the disease would have been spreaded in the society. When we study that, that becomes epidemiology. So bari only how the disease has spreaded matra alla, we are also see how much the disease has spreaded in a particular community. That is called prevalence. What is the statistics that we are going to get on the 1000 population alli, how many people have got the disease anta ನೋಡ್ತೀವಲ್ಲ, that also will be covered under epidemiology. ದಿನ ಪೇಪರ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಬರ್ತಾ ಇದೆ ಎಲ್ಲ, ಕರೋನಾ ವೈರಸ್ ಎಷ್ಟು ಜನ ಕೇಸ್ ಫಟಾಲಿಟಿ ರೇಟ್ ಇದೆ, ಎಷ್ಟು ಜನ ಪಾಸಿಟಿವಿಟಿ ರೇಟ್ ಇದೆ, ಇದೆಲ್ಲ ನೋಡ್ತಾರಲ್ಲ, ಇದೆಲ್ಲ ಎಪಿಡೆಮಿಯಾಲಜಿಕಲ್ ಸ್ಟಡೀಸೇ. Right now, next under epidemiology is, as I said, mode of spread, how it gets spreaded, whether it gets spreaded from person to person by direct contact or by indirect contact, hege spread agutte anta ಓದ್ತೀವಲ್ಲ, that is also called epidemiological studies. And while doing all this, we will come to certain conclusions whether the disease is endemic or epidemic or pandemic or sporadic. See, that is what we call prevalence in specific regions. Like for example, India nalli yavudi endemic disease anta ಓದ್ತೀವಿ. Cholera is an endemic in India, whereas corona covid is a pandemic throughout the world. So this is prevalence in specific regions, and also whether it is prevalent in specific seasons. Cold season ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಒಂದು particular disease ತುಂಬಾ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಸ್ಪ್ರೆಡ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ, ಹಾಟ್ ಸಮ್ಮರ್ ಡೇಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಕೆಲವೊಂದು ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಸ್ಪ್ರೆಡ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ, ಅಥವಾ ಕೆಲವೊಂದು ಫಂಕ್ಷನ್ಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಸ್ಪ್ರೆಡ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ, ಇದನ್ನು ಓದ್ತೀವಲ್ಲ. ಸೊ ದಟ್ ಇಸ್ ಆಲ್ಸೋ ಕವರ್ಡ್ ಹಿಯರ್. ಅಂಡ್ ಲಾಸ್ಟ್ಲಿ ಏಜ್ ಗ್ರೂಪ್ಸ್, ಒಂದು ಪರ್ಟಿಕ್ಯುಲರ್ ಏಜ್ ಗ್ರೂಪ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಈ ಡಿಸೀಸ್ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಕಾಣ್ ಬರ್ತಾ ಇದೆ ಅಂತ ನೋಡ್ತೀವಿ. ಸೊ ಅದು ಕೂಡ ಎಪಿಡೆಮಿಯಾಲಜಿಕಲ್ ಸ್ಟಡೀಸೇ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ಅಂಡ್ ಅಲಾಂಗ್ ವಿತ್ this is also very important to find out what is the primary source of infection of this disease, whether a person itself is responsible or whether some kind of a carrier is there. The carrier andre, it could be a person again, a human carrier, or it could be an animal. So idannu kuda epidemiological studies alli ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ. ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಡೈರೆಕ್ಟ್ ಆಗಿ ಆರ್ಗಾನಿಸಮ್ ಸ್ಟಡೀಸ್ ಡಿಸೀಸ್ ಸ್ಟಡೀಸ್ ಮಾಡಲ್ಲ, ಇದು ಪೆರಿಫೆರಲ್ ಸ್ಟಡಿ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ಬೋದು. ವೇರ್ once the disease has affected, we are going to find out what is the source, we are going to find out how it spreads, we are going to find out what is its prevalence, and we are also going to find out in which age group it affects, in which seasons it is more, in ಯಾವ region ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಯಾವ behaviors ಇಂದ ಈ disease ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ, ಇದನ್ನೆಲ್ಲ ಸ್ಟಡಿ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ ಅಂಡರ್ ಎಪಿಡೆಮಿಯಾಲಜಿ. ಸೊ one need not have to question its importance, because we know now corona ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಇಷ್ಟು ನಮಗೆ ಗೊತ್ತಿರುವುದು because of mainly of epidemiological studies. Okay, now once the patient comes to the doctor with a particular symptoms, the doctor is going to examine the patient, physically examine ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ, and with this preliminary examination he will suspect a particular disease, but it will be only in the suspecting stage. Confirmation ಆಗುವುದು ಯಾವಾಗ ಅಂತ ಆದ್ರೆ only during the only in the diagnostic laboratory. So the diagnostic laboratory, the patient is going to give certain samples, and using that sample the person in the laboratory is going to exactly say which organism has caused the disease. So that is covered under diagnosis. Usual type of diagnostic procedures that are carried out are these four. First is microscopic examination. This is a very conventional method. Right from the beginning they have been doing it. Andre ಯಾವ್ದಾದೊಂದು clinical sample ತಗೊಂಡು microscope under ನೋಡೋದು, directly ನೋಡಬಹುದು ಅಥವಾ stain ಸ್ಟೈನಿಂಗ್ ಟೆಕ್ನಿಕ್ ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡಿನೂ ನೋಡ್ಬೋದು. ಸೊ ಟೈಪ್ ಆಫ್ ಕ್ಲಿನಿಕಲ್ ಸ್ಯಾಂಪಲ್ಸ್ ಕುಡ್ ಬಿ ಎನಿಥಿಂಗ್. ಐ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಜಸ್ಟ್ ಮೆನ್ಷನ್ಡ್ ಟೂ ಹಿಯರ್. ಸ್ಪ್ಯೂಟಮ್ ಸ್ಯಾಂಪಲ್, ಫಾರ್ ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್ TB ಆದ್ರೆ TBದು ಸಿಂಪ್ಟಮ್ಸ್ ಬಂದ್ರೆ ಡಾಕ್ಟರ್ ವಿಲ್ ಟೆಲ್ ದ ಪೇಷಂಟ್ ಟು ಗಿವ್ ಸ್ಪ್ಯೂಟಮ್ ಸ್ಯಾಂಪಲ್ ಟು ದ ಲ್ಯಾಬೊರೇಟರಿ. ಸೊ ಲ್ಯಾಬೊರೇಟರಿ ಸ್ಪ್ಯೂಟಮ್ ಸ್ಯಾಂಪಲ್ ತಗೊಂಡು ಪ್ರಾಸೆಸ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಆಸಿಡ್ ಫಾಸ್ಟ್ ಸ್ಟೈನಿಂಗ್ ಮಾಡಿ MTB ಇದೆಯಾ ಇಲ್ವಾ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ. ಆರ್ ಡಿಫ್ರೆಂಟ್ ಟೈಪ್ ಆಫ್ ಸ್ವಾಬ್ಸ್ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಬಿ ಟೇಕನ್, ಸ್ಕಿನ್ ಸ್ವಾಬೋ ಅಥವಾ ಥ್ರೋಟ್ ಸ್ವಾಬೋ, ವಜೈನಲ್ ಸ್ವಾಬೋ, ಈ ತರ ಯಾವ್ದಾದೊಂದು ಸ್ವಾಬ್ ತಗೊಂಡು ಅದನ್ನ ಜಸ್ಟ್ ಸ್ಲೈಡ್ ಮೇಲೆ ಹಾಕಿ ಡ್ರೈ ಮಾಡಿ ಸ್ಟೈನಿಂಗ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಅದನ್ನು ಮೈಕ್ರೋಸ್ಕೋಪ್ ಅಂಡರ್ ನೋಡಿ ಅದರದ್ದು ಮೈಕ್ರೋಸ್ಕೋಪಿಕ್ ಕ್ಯಾರೆಕ್ಟರ್ಸ್, ಮಾರ್ಫಾಲಜಿಕಲ್ ಕ್ಯಾರೆಕ್ಟರ್ಸ್ ಅನ್ನ ಇಟ್ಕೊಂಡು ವಿ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಗೋ ಫಾರ್ ಫರ್ದರ್ ಅನಾಲಿಸಿಸ್. Second type of diagnosis is the patient has given the sample. The sample could be blood or urine or fecal material or cerebrospinal fluid, could be any of this. So once you collect the sample, you process it in the laboratory and you inoculate it in a specific culture medium. So this is where again knowing about the cultural characters is very important. You should be knowing this particular organism grows best in this particular media, so you can inoculate directly in that medium, right? So you inoculate it in the medium, incubate it at proper growth conditions and study its colony characters and ಆ colonies ಇಟ್ಕೊಂಡು further biochemical characters ಮಾಡಿ you can confirm which organism has caused the disease in that patient and you can give the report to the doctor. So ಇದು second way of technique. ಇದು ಕೂಡ conventional technique, traditional ಆಗಿ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇರುವ technique. ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ಇಸ್ ಸೀರೋಲಾಜಿಕಲ್ ಡಯಾಗ್ನೋಸಿಸ್. ಇದು ಮತ್ತೆ ಮಾಲಿಕ್ಯುಲರ್ ಮೆಥಡ್ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ರೀಸೆಂಟ್ ಆಗಿ ಬಂದಿರುವ ಡಯಾಗ್ನೋಸ್ಟಿಕ್ ಟೆಕ್ನಿಕ್ಸ್. ಇದರಲ್ಲಿ ಏನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ದಿಸ್ ಇಸ್ ಮಚ್ ರ್ಯಾಪಿಡ್ ದ್ಯಾನ್ ದೀಸ್ ಟು ಟೆಕ್ನಿಕ್ಸ್. ಇದು ಐಸೋಲೇಷನ್ಗೆ ಅಟ್ಲೀಸ್ಟ್ 2 to 3 days ಆಗುತ್ತೆ ರಿಸಲ್ಟ್ ಕೊಡಕ್ಕೆ. ಸೀರೋಲಾಜಿಕಲ್ ಮೆಥಡ್ ಅಥವಾ ಮಾಲಿಕ್ಯುಲರ್ ಮೆಥಡ್ಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ತುಂಬಾ ಬೇಗ ವಿದಿನ್ ಅ ಡೇ ವಿ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಗಿವ್ ದ ರಿಸಲ್ಟ್. ಸೊ ಸೀರೋಲಾಜಿಕಲ್ ಡಯಾಗ್ನೋಸಿಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಏನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಆಸ್ ದ ನೇಮ್ ಸಜೆಸ್ಟ್ ವಿ ಆರ್ ಗೋಯಿಂಗ್ ಟು ಟೇಕ್ ದ ಸೀರಮ್ ಆಫ್ ದಿ ಪೇಷಂಟ್. ಪೇಷಂಟ್ ಸೀರಮ್ ಎಲ್ಲಿಂದ ಸಿಗುತ್ತೆ? ಬ್ಲಡ್ ಇಂದ. ಸೊ ಬ್ಲಡ್ ಇಂದ ಸೀರಮ್ ನ ಸೆಪರೇಟ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಆ ಸೀರಮ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಒಂದ ಪ್ಯಾಥೋಜನ್ ಆಂಟಿಜನ್ಸ್ ಇರಬಹುದು ಅಥವಾ ಆಂಟಿಜನ್ಸ್ ಗೆ ಪ್ರೊಡ್ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡಿರುವ ಆಂಟಿಬಾಡೀಸ್ ಇರಬಹುದು. ಎನಿಥಿಂಗ್ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಬಿ ದೇರ್. ಸೊ ಯು ಈದರ್ ಡಿಟೆಕ್ಟ್ ದಿ ಆಂಟಿಜನ್ ಇನ್ ದ ಸೀರಮ್ ಆರ್ ಡಿಟೆಕ್ಟ್ ದಿ ಆಂಟಿಬಾಡೀಸ್ ಇನ್ ದ ಸೀರಮ್. ಸೊ ಇಫ್ ಯು ಫೈಂಡ್ ದಿ ಆಂಟಿಜನ್ ಆರ್ ಸ್ಪೆಸಿಫಿಕ್ ಆಂಟಿಬಾಡೀಸ್ ಯು ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಕನ್ಫರ್ಮ್ ದಟ್ a particular pathogen is present in the patient. ಇದು serological diagnosis. The last one is molecular methods. Illi we detect the presence or absence of the DNA or RNA of that particular pathogen. ಸೊ ಅದರದ್ದೇ ಮಾಲಿಕ್ಯೂಲ್ನೇ ಫೈಂಡ್ ಔಟ್ ಮಾಡಿ ನಾವು ರಿಸಲ್ಟ್ ಕೊಡ್ತೀವಿ. ದಿಸ್ ಇಸ್ ದ ಮೋಸ್ಟ್ ಕನ್ಫರ್ಮೇಟರಿ ರಿಸಲ್ಟ್ ದಟ್ ವಿ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಗಿವ್. ಮೋಸ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡರ್ನ್ ಮೆಥಡ್ ಅಂತಾನು ಹೇಳ್ಬೋದು. ಎಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ಗೊತ್ತಿದೆ ಈಗ RT-PCR ಅಂತ ಕರೋನಾ ಕೋವಿಡ್ ಡಿಸೀಸ್ ಡಿಟೆಕ್ಷನ್ಗೆ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ. ಸೊ ಈ RT-PCR ಅಲ್ಲಿ ರಿವರ್ಸ್ ಟ್ರಾನ್ಸ್ಕ್ರಿಪ್ಟೇಸ್ PCR ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಲ್ಲ, ಈ RT-PCR ಅಲ್ಲಿ ವಿ ಆರ್ ಗೋಯಿಂಗ್ ಟು ಡಿಟೆಕ್ಟ್ ದಿ RNA ಆಫ್ ದಿ ಕರೋನಾ ವೈರಸ್, ರೈಟ್? ಸೊ ಇದು very new technique and it gives very accurate and also rapid results. Same way nucleic acid probes anta ide. Using that also you can find out the DNA or RNA of the pathogen. So these are the different diagnostic techniques that we need to be knowing about a particular pathogen. Okay, diagnosis is done. You have given the result to the doctor. Now what is doctor's work? He is going to treat the patient. Specific treatment ಕೊಡ್ತಾರೆ. So treatment ಅನ್ನುವಾಗ two types of treatments are usually considered. One is symptomatic treatment. Second one is specific antibacterial treatment. Symptomatic treatment andre enu? For example, the person is suffering from high fever. So the first thing doctor will do is he will give fever controlling drugs. Paracetamol ಏನೋ ಒಂದು, ಅಥವಾ he will be having very acute pain. So pain ಕಡಿಮೆ ಮಾಡಕ್ಕೆ drugs ಕೊಡ್ತಾರೆ. So he will be suffering from diarrhea. So diarrhea ಕಂಟ್ರೋಲ್ ಮಾಡಕ್ಕೆ drugs ಕೊಡ್ತಾರೆ. ಇದು symptomatic treatment ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಿ. ಏನಾದ್ರೂ ತುಂಬಾ acute symptoms ಇದ್ರೆ ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಅದನ್ನ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಕಂಟ್ರೋಲ್ಗೆ ತರಬೇಕು. So that is symptomatic treatment. But the pathogen responsible for the disease will not be taken care of under symptomatic treatment, will not be destroyed. So pathogen destroy ಮಾಡಕ್ಕೆ we have to do antibacterial therapy or antibiotics need to be given. ಸೊ ಆಂಟಿಬಯೋಟಿಕ್ಸ್ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಯೂಶುವಲಿ ನಿಮಗಿರುವ ಡಿಸೀಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ನೀವು ನೋಡುವ ಆಂಟಿಬಯೋಟಿಕ್ಸ್ ಈ ಯಾವ್ದಾದ್ರು ಒಂದು ಕ್ಲಾಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಬರುತ್ತೆ. ಪೆನ್ಸಿಲಿನ್ಸ್, ಡಿಫರೆಂಟ್ ಟೈಪ್ಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಪೆನ್ಸಿಲಿನ್ಸ್ ಆರ್ ದೇರ್, derivatives of penicillins are there that could be given. Cephalosporins, chloramphenicol, streptomycins, fluoroquinolones. ಇದು specific disease ಮಾತಾಡುವಾಗ I will give the details about these antibiotics, not now. You just remember the names, that is enough. And this is about the treatment part. But while talking about the treatment, nowadays it has become very important to talk about this too, that is drug resistance. Because nowadays most of the pathogens that we come across have evolved. ಅಂದ್ರೆ ನಾವು ಎಷ್ಟು ಆಂಟಿಬಯೋಟಿಕ್ಸ್ ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವೋ ಅದಕ್ಕೂ ಅಡ್ಜಸ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡಿಕೊಂಡು ಗ್ರೋ ಮಾಡುವ ಆರ್ಗಾನಿಸಮ್ಸ್ ಬಂದಾಗಿದೆ. ಡ್ರಗ್ ರೆಸಿಸ್ಟೆಂಟ್ ಮೈಕ್ರೋ ಆರ್ಗಾನಿಸಮ್ಸ್ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಕಮ್ ಅಪ್. ಸೊ ಮೋಸ್ಟ್ ಆಫ್ ದೀಸ್ ಪ್ಯಾಥೋಜನ್ಸ್ along with diagnosis, ನಾವು laboratory diagnose ಮಾಡುವಾಗ along with the diagnosis they also do this. They will check the antibiotic susceptibility of that pathogen, whether a pathogen dies with a specific drug or not. idannu study ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ. So knowing about the drug resistance of the organism will give us an idea about what type of drug that we need to give. ಈಗ ಫಾರ್ ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್ ಒಂದು ಆರ್ಗ್ಯಾನಿಸಮ್ ಪೆನ್ಸಿಲಿನ್ಗೆ ರೆಸಿಸ್ಟ್ ಆಗಿದೆ ಅಂತ ಆದ್ರೆ, ಇಫ್ ಯು ಟ್ರೀಟ್ ದಟ್ ಡಿಸೀಸ್ ವಿತ್ ಪೆನ್ಸಿಲಿನ್, ಇಟ್ ವಿಲ್ ನಾಟ್ ಡೈ, ಇಟ್ ವಿಲ್ ನಾಟ್ ಗೆಟ್ ಡಿಸ್ಟ್ರಾಯ್ಡ್, ಇಟ್ ವಿಲ್ ಕೀಪ್ ಆನ್ ಗ್ರೋಯಿಂಗ್, right? So hagiruvaga we have to go for some other drug, streptomycin go, chloramphenicol go, some other or derivatives of penicillin go hogbekagutte. So again talking about drug resistance will show us the way of how to treat the disease, whether we should use a different type of antibiotic or whether we should use more than one type of antibiotic for treating a particular disease. All this we will come to know. So here as a microbiologist, your contribution is finding out the antibiotic susceptibility pattern of a particular pathogen. Adu nimma kelsa agutte. Okay, the last one and the most important one we need to know about the disease is about prophylaxis. Prophylaxis is prevention of the disease with some precautionary measures. See, please understand the difference between prophylaxis and treatment. Usually students will confuse both. Treatment antandre the patient is already suffering from the disease and you want to cure the patient out of the disease, so you by giving some antibiotics. Whereas prophylaxis antandre the patient the person has not yet infected, but you want to protect the person from infection. ಬರದೇ ಇರುವ ಹಾಗೆ ನೋಡ್ಕೊಳ್ಳೋದು, ಡಿಸೀಸೇ ಬರದೇ ಇರುವ ಹಾಗೆ ನೋಡ್ಕೊಳ್ಳೋದು prophylaxis or prevention. Again, prophylaxis or prevention is done by two measures. One is general measure and the other one is special measure. General measure antandre you know how the organism spreads in the society and you give certain general measures to control the spread of the disease. For example, COVID togoli, what are the general measures they say? Mask hakkoli, social distancing ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಳ್ಳಿ, sanitize ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಳ್ಳಿ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತಾರಲ್ಲ, these are all general measures. Whereas special measure ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಏನು? Very simple, you take vaccines. So vaccines togondu you protect yourself from getting the infection. So this is the special measure. So likewise for each and every disease we need to know about the general measures and special measures. Okay, the last slide for you here. See, this whole presentation has not talked about any specific disease or any specific pathogen. So idu exam point of view nalli this presentation is not important for you, but for studying each and every disease, please remember this approach and go according to this approach. Okay, now in each presentation I have asked you some questions. Here also I will put one simple question to you, just do it. There are two terms mentioned here. One is vaccines, the other one is antibiotics. As I said, students usually get confused between these two. Antibiotics ತಗೊಂಡು ಹೋಗಿ vaccine ಹೆಸರು ಬರೀತಾರೆ, vaccine under ಅಲ್ಲಿ antibiotic drugs ಹೆಸರು ಬರೀತಾರೆ. So just list out the difference between vaccines and antibiotics with a few examples. Okay, fine. Thank you.